Hey everyone, just a quick note here. I got a email from a longtime listener that basically said they felt that I was kind of having fun at Rick's expense with some snarky comments on the show when he is not present. There's someone else with me on the show. And I'm sorry about that. I've never meant to diss Rick. I think what happens is Rick and I have a back channel relationship. When I'm really depressed, I call Rick because he understands that world. And we kind of have this teasing that happens with each other on the kind of the back channel communication. And that sometimes spills out into the regular show. And I'm thinking, oh, Rick's going to hear that and think it's funny. And then I realized with this person who I'm really glad brought this up, said the people that aren't in on the joke, it doesn't land right. So I'm sorry about that. So I love Rick. He is an important part of my life. And I didn't want anyone to think that I don't love Rick. So if you guys ever have any issues, I actually love to hear from everyone. I post the show. You hit the publish button and then you just don't know a lot of the time. So I would love to hear from you. It's radio@gardenfork.tv. All right, on with the show. Hey, welcome to I just flubbed that. Welcome to Garden Fork Radio. It's the Eclectic DIY show. It's me, Eric. I have this on my YouTube channel talking about what we think are interesting things. Today, Will and I are going to talk about his take on ChatGTP, kind of following up with Nicole and I. And then he wants to talk about video games, which I know nothing about. So welcome, sir.
How are you doing today?
I have no complaints.
Awesome.
I have central heating and I have a cup of herbal tea here. So
very nice. It's raining here right now and everything is ice covered and lovely. So it'll be a fun day for a drive today.
Yeah, we have had a very warm winter and then we had ice all of a sudden. So you're like, ruh-roh.
Yeah, it'll sort itself out. It always does this time of year. But I know that sap season's got to be coming right around the corner here shortly.
Sap season was historically early this year, at least in the Northeast.
Yeah, we're starting to get our stuff together, but we haven't actually drilled any trees yet or anything like that. I always look at Weather Underground at their little chart, and when you see that line on the forward forecast going up and down a certain way, then you know it's time to start tapping trees.
Yes, you want warm days and freezing temperatures at night.
Absolutely.
Wow. So you and I talked a little bit about ChatGTP, and you suggested I watch the John Oliver show in which he talked for 27 minutes about ChatGTP in a very funny way, but made really good, had really great thoughts about it. And I was curious to hear your take on that whole world.
I thought it was interesting, some of the points he made about the art software going out online and scraping data to produce pictures and art. I don't know if you and Aaron got that photo I sent of me being a supervillain, but literally you just take a picture of yourself and it goes out and it made that picture. And it was kind of neat and fun, but ultimately getting into this thing, it's a little bit dangerous because who knows where it's getting those photos from and the art from and the style and everything, and you're not crediting the people that you're getting inspiration from. So ultimately it's kicking out images and things like that are using other people's artwork that's currently online that might be somebody's portfolio or somebody's, private artwork and stuff. So it's kind of an interesting thing to see how even these like stock generated like Gedney images, he had the commentary about that where ChatGPT or the art program, AI program, took some pictures, and one of them it took from a stock image website, and then it tried to blur out the stock image watermark that was on the page so it could use the art. So it was like, it's very interesting to see how this is all going to kind of come together and make its thing. So I don't think we're going to get taken over by the robots yet, but I guarantee you there's a way that this is going to impact everybody's life very, very quickly.
We'll link to it in the show. John Oliver, I mean, some people might think he's like he tilts liberal, but he takes liberals to task as much as he takes right-wing people to task. His wife is an Iraq War Army veteran, actually.
Wow.
And I think he, I really like the fact that he is actually from a different country, so kind of looks at America in a different lens than we do, and kind of shows a different way of looking at things. But what I liked is he basically said that the AI, not just ChatGPT, but all of them, learn from, I think most of them do this, learn from the internet, which is a cesspool.
Yep.
And there are biases built into its learning. He gave an example that Microsoft a while ago brought out an AI Twitter bot, and I think within a day, the Twitter bot became a Holocaust denier.
Yeah, and it had a lot of very sultry things that it was saying, and it got shut down relatively quickly because people figured out how to manipulate the AI to get it to do something else. It's kind of like the friend that's not really the sharpest of the group that's trying to learn about the ways, and you put them up to do the goofy things, and then everybody laughs and jokes at the fumbles they do. That's exactly
Right.
what's happening here is people are, editing and modifying those things and have ability to direct it, and it's kind of scary to figure out, like, what did it draw from to put that picture? The thing I never thought of is it took a picture of me and it drew things from somewhere to produce the result, but it never showed me any of the work on how it got there. Like, what is it doing with regards to text? What is it doing with regards to pictures? All of those things is kind of concerning that it doesn't show you how it got there. It just, here's what it took and here's what it put out, but it doesn't tell you anything in between.
Well, that was a huge thing I saw on a couple other news programs as well, is it has this self-learning but doesn't explain itself. And so the big scare for me is these resume sites. Your resume is not read by a human at first. It's scanned by some AI. And I think one of the resume services discovered, or maybe it's a company discovered, that they were only getting resumes from guys named Jared that played lacrosse at university, because the AI was starting to learn a bias in some way. So I don't know if there can be transparency in that or not.
Yeah, I think that the shocking thing for me about the whole ChatGPT situation is 100 million people are using that. And what are they using it for? And how quickly did this come about? I mean, this only really came about since last fall. So to have it be as big as it is, if it's something you haven't looked into, take 20 minutes today, maybe watch that video or do a little bit of looking around online, because you probably have been involved with some AI learning bot, whether it's photos or text or whatever, and you've used it in your life and you don't even realize it.
Yeah. If you want to if you don't want to dig for the link, just go to YouTube, type in John Oliver This Week Tonight, and then AI, and look for the most recent show on that. It's quite good. I've actually want to use AI to help me write better YouTube titles that are more thought-provoking, but not clickbait, because I think it's okay to do that, because right now I have a couple of web blog posts from people. Oh, and I subscribe to a newsletter. The guy writes about how to write better YouTube titles. And I think AI is just another source for that, because I don't think I'd ever take an exact headline it came out with, but I think it's a good way to start idea brainstorming, kind of is it called whiteboarding, when you write all the ideas down on that erasable board?
Yep,
I don't know.
Exactly. I find it
my dream board.
I find it interesting on, like, we've looked at, I played around a little bit with having it write descriptions of like vacations and copy for like our cabins and even some of the foods on the menu, just to see what it would come up with. And then what I do is I take that information and then write it in the format and style that I want it to be to represent our brand. But the scary part is there's a lot of folks who are having ChatGPT or these types of programs produce a document, and then to make it look less AI generated, they put it into another AI generated program that edits documents to edit it to sharpen it up a little bit, which that's a scary thing all of its own.
Oh, so that means that my spam is going to be much better written than it is right now.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, just think about like being a 10th grade English teacher in school right now, and you're getting all these, kid XYZ puts out a document and, writes a paper about, some George Washington or whatever it is, just goes to Chat GPT, downloads the app, types in George Washington, 4 pages later, he's got his homework done and didn't have to do anything. Like, how are they going to police that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do have some friends that are teachers, and one of them was like, well, you get a feel for how a kid writes. And then all of a sudden he hands in a stellar, it might be that it's a written test in class, Yeah,
maybe. Or you just have to start start using Chat GPT at the beginning of the semester when the teacher doesn't know you're writing, and then they just think you're a genius the whole time. Things we learn on garden. I like your point about, I don't know if this would be a legislation thing. They might have, the European Union might be on top of this already, but watermarking content that's created by AI. Yeah, there was a document. So before I got the John Oliver document and after the podcast, because I listened to you and Nicole talk about it, I kind of did a little deep dive on just some general AI stuff. And there's a lot of discussion, both at the corporate level and at the government level, to figure out a way to determine what is produced by an AI bot and what is produced by a human, because as they get into the where this came from was as they get into the medical field. I don't know if you saw the commentary they had about it detecting cancer, but it figured out, like, the AI was doing its thing and it was looking at these photos to figure out which people had cancer and which ones didn't when looking at malignant skin cancer. And all of a sudden they figured out that the program figured out that if there's a ruler in the picture, most likely it's a medical picture and not. So then it started flagging anybody who had a ruler in the picture that they had cancer, and people who didn't have the ruler in the picture didn't. And they're trying to figure out, like, how to make that stuff work so that doesn't happen. But, you go to a doctor's office, the photo from the doctor's office probably has a medical instrument in the photo, and some of the other ones didn't. So that's how it started figuring out which ones were the right ones.
Yeah, because I'm actually going to go to the dermatologist next month, and I've never been to one before. But now that I'm a little older, they have to check my skin. I'll just have Chat GTP check it instead. I'll upload photos of my body. That would be bad, because then it would use those photos for other stuff.
Here's Eric's skin cells looking like a superhero.
The photo you sent Aaron and I on the back channel of you telling the AI to make you a sinister character was pretty good. You could tell it was you, but it was just kind of funny how it was very sci-fi and dark, and I think it gave you like a flat top kind of haircut.
Yeah.
So
I looked like an angry futuristic general is what it made me look like.
Yeah.
It did give me a good set of abs, though. I don't know if you saw that picture, but,
I didn't see the abs part. Yikes.
Well, to talk about one other thing, I don't know if you saw this on the news, and not that I want to make this the current event show, but have you seen computer learning with regards to video? That now there's a whole trend of taking a whole bunch of photos and videos and basically scrubbing the data off of it, and then producing a script and then making it look like Tom Cruise or Paris Hilton or Donald Trump saying certain things, and it sounds just like them, but they can make it say whatever it wants, and it makes the video look like it's saying whatever it wants.
Yeah.
That's going to be
trouble.
I'm
scared of that, because someone will grab one of my videos and make me say some heinous racist stuff. And then how do you prove that you didn't say that,
Right. That's where that watermark thing, circling back to that again, that's where that watermark piece comes into play, is that they're trying to figure out a way to, make that happen. I would say there was something funny out there, which was President Obama, President Trump, and George W. Bush were on a chat with each other playing Uno, and they made it sound like all of them, and listening to them argue with each other about how it works and everything. It was pretty funny. So there are some funny things that are coming out of it, but it's also fairly serious.
Yeah. And the rule followers will do the watermarking. The nefarious entities in our world can also build their own AI. I mean, there's going to be a point where you can get AI on a Arduino chip or a Raspberry Pi computer. And then I think they're the ones who are going to create these false videos to try and topple governments or to just create distrust in a country, or create distrust about our voting systems. That's the problem I have.
The funny part is a number of people always debate with me on, people wouldn't fall for that. And I remind them that last April, I posted on my Facebook page that my resort was going clothing optional, and it got 26,000 views in the first 5 hours. That followed up with a number of meetings I had to have with the county with regards to the fact that I'm actually not doing this and that it was a joke. So trust me, I think that there's definitely a number of people who could fall for that. And unfortunately, that's just a kind of the byproduct of this is that we have an inherent trust for what we read and see, and some characters might take advantage of that.
Yeah, that even happened with a neighbor of mine. I sent someone a photo, and they said, "Oh, you shouldn't have put that on Facebook." I'm like, "I didn't put it on Facebook. I sent it to another friend said, you shouldn't have put that on Facebook." I'm like, "I didn't put it on Facebook. I just texted it to this person. I would never put that photo on Facebook." And it was a nice photo. It was the person's very private. And just one person away from the person that received that photo is immediately thinking that I put it on the internet. So they thought I put it on the Facebook. So I had to diffuse the situation. And I'm like, oh, wow. I won't send anyone photos.
Yep. I think there's going to be a period of time where this technology is going to be great and it's going to do great things for us. And I also think that on the flip side, we're going to run into a situation where some people are going to try to use it to get an advantage or take advantage of things or do nefarious things. And ultimately, that happens with everything. I mean, everything you look at in the world. Great things come out of a number of things, but there's also bad things that come out of it. So we just need to be smart and educated about it as this thing continues to evolve.
I wonder if they could use AI to make baseball or golf more interesting.
You don't like baseball?
I knew that would.
I mean, I don't like baseball, but I can tolerate it. Now, golf, on the other hand, that's a nap waiting to happen. Sorry, all the golfers of Garden Fork. Hate mail goes to radio at Garden Fork.
Just let Eric know. There's a very good documentary on Netflix. I'm pretty sure produced by the same company that produces the Formula One ongoing documentary series, and it's all about golf. And I watched the first 2 episodes, and I learned so much. And I was like, what an industry. Just amazing. Just amazing.
Any of those are just amazing. I mean, I'm exposed to the NFL through Pyro, and just knowing all of the stuff that goes into that industry or baseball or anything else. I mean, there are so many people that are involved with putting things together just for you to go watch the game that day. It's unbelievable.
The amount of money in professional golf is stunning. They were interviewing a mid-level PGA player, and I'm making the numbers up, but he came in maybe 15th for that weekend's tournament, and he earned, I think, $15,000. And I'm like, well, that's pretty good for a weekend of work, Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know that doing this podcast, we really rake it in every time we do that.
We do, yeah. What we work an hour, and then, ka-ching, ka-ching.
Exactly.
Hey, would you like more of Garden Fork or more of Eric? Would you like to get it in your email inbox? I send out, just about every week, I send out a little email about Eric's World and new stuff I posted. I even talk about podcasts I've listened to or just interesting stuff. And usually, almost always, at least one picture of the Labradors. You can get that by signing up for Eric's Garden Fork email newsletter thing. There should be a link in the notes to this show, or go to gardenfork.tv, and on almost every page at the top of the page should be a sign up. All right, so you wanted to talk about video games, and I know almost nothing. I know that there used to be cartridge kind that you plugged in, and then video games kind of morphed to the web using like the cloud servers basically, and that's all I know.
So I'm actually going to roll it all the way back to the 1970s and 80s for a second for all the folks in Garden Fork. So arcade.
What do you mean by that?
I'm just saying it. There's not a lot of 20-somethings. I'm kidding. Anyways, so back in the day, you'd go to these big spaces in the mall where there's all these video games, the arcades, where you'd go in and you'd play Miss Pac-Man and you'd play Pong and you'd play, the different fighting games and whatever else. And to get one of those machines at your home was always super expensive. Like if you wanted to buy the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade stand-up machine, it was like $3,000 to $5,000. So not a lot of people had these in their houses. And then Nintendo and all these other console games, the ones that hook up to your TV came out, and that became a thing. And then eventually it morphed to TV, to the computer, so you could do them there. This last fall, there's been actually a really big push to go back to the arcade machines. And I'll give you some of the links that you can include in the show notes, but there's a couple companies that have come out with 1/3 size arcade machines, from a company called One Up Arcade. And there's another one called At Games, where it's the licensed game, just like you used to play in the arcade back in the day, Miss Pac-Man or Mortal Kombat or any of the, driving games or whatever, but they're 1/3 size, and they start out at around $300 and they go up to $700. It's literally a freestanding machine that you play in your basement and so on. And these came out last fall, and they kind of were a sleeper because there was a lot of logistics issues with them coming into the United States because they were stuck on the West Coast. And now they've started to kind of flood into the Walmarts and the Amazons and all these different places. Well, instantaneously, everybody who's got a man cave in their basement or a thing in their garage all of a sudden adds this game. Instead of paying $3,000 to $5,000 for, let's say, Big Buck Hunter, you could buy it for $600 and have it be the exact same game. It plays the same, and it's just smaller size for your house or your apartment or your garage. And there's been this big underground movement of people buying these things and reselling them because they're hard to get to. But the other interesting thing that's happening with it, if you're into tinkering and modding and kind of wanting to play some of the older games, is now you can get Raspberry Pis that you can install inside of this machine and mod it and change the buttons and the levers and kind of customize it to yourself. And there's this push in technology for, folks like myself at my age, where I'm not really into playing Fortnite or playing, the Minecrafts or any of the online games. But all of a sudden I bought one of these machines and, I'm tinkering around with it. And now my kids are interested in it and so on. And it's kind of a new little hobbyist thing that's kind of come up in the last probably 4 or 5 months here. And I thought it'd be something that you guys might be interested in hearing about.
Oh, fun. There is a Bob who runs a YouTube channel called I Like to Make Stuff, has built several arcade games in his workshop and then also put the electronics on the inside. And so I haven't really paid attention to the videos, but I remember him doing that. And so this makes stuff like that available to every person. And of course, and being Eric, we will have an Amazon link to some of these games if they're available.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because, if you wanted to have an arcade machine at home, you'd pay $3,000 to $5,000 for the original, or you'd have to do
and
like
they're
what
big.
Bob, yeah, exactly. Or you do what Bob did, which is you'd have to build one of these machines out of wood and then get a computer and program it and do all of these different things. And this company At Games and Legend Arcade are kind of the two big ones out there. They went to the manufacturers and said, hey, you guys aren't making these games anymore and arcades aren't a thing. Could we take all these older games from the 80s and 90s and make miniature versions for people's homes? And instantaneously you can go from not having an arcade in your house or an arcade machine to picking it up. And I think when we bought the kit, it took us maybe an hour or two to put it together. It's kind of like an IKEA furniture thing. Everything's already pre-programmed and you just plug it together and plug it in the wall and it worked.
Nice. So it's like kind of flat packed, and then the circuit boards have like ribbon cables or something to plug into the monitor or whatever, and the buttons.
Yeah. All the cords inside of it were all color coded. So literally if you knew your colors, you just match up the colors, plug it in, and then plug the little cord out the back, and we were up and live. Cameron and I in the workshop put 2 of these machines together because I got 2 different styles. And it took us maybe an hour and a half on each of them. It was kind of a fun Saturday project. But now we've gone down the rabbit hole of, now people have built these things. Now you can start modding them and changing them and making them into different things, which makes it a lot easier to get into that hobby than it was before with the exorbitant prices or the complicated things like what Bob was building.
This actually goes back to the early days of Garden Fork Radio, when my co-host was Radio Mike, or Mike as we call him.
Yep.
And he was refurbishing pinball machines and then got into making custom circuit boards to customize pinball machines to have different effects, basically, or different ways of scoring. And wow, this is a real flashback in a way, because that's interesting, because the pinball machines are very electromechanical, and then people like him were introducing solid state circuit boards that you could plug in and bypass some of the relays and switches and stuff and have different lights come on. And that's very interesting how it's come full circle here on the show.
Interesting you bring that up, because the same thing has happened now in the pinball space. So in January, At Games came out with a digital pinball machine. So it looks and feels just like a regular pinball machine, but it's about 1/3 the size. And instead of having a whole bunch of mechanical parts in it, instead the play field is a digital play field, and the screens are all that. And you can flip through, and it has like 70 games on it. But then, of course, you can open it up and put a Raspberry Pi in it and do a little bit of tweaking on the internet. And now all of a sudden you can play some of these old-fashioned games that have been reproduced digitally by people for years and years and years. They've been reproducing those same games that Mike was buying into a digital format. Well, now this company came out with this machine, and people figured out how to merge those two things together. So if you had like the old Twilight Zone pinball machine, or an old one from the 70s, you could actually play it digitally on there. And because the screen resolution is so high, it looks and feels just like the pinball screen does, because it's in high definition.
Wow.
Yeah. Pinball machines.
Do you have any?
Go ahead.
Do you have any arcade games at the Bear Paw Resort? Or
we do. At the bar, we have them. Now, these are for personal use only. So, like in our basement at the house, we have these types of machines. At our actual resort, I have a couple different arcade machines and a claw machine and that kind of stuff. But these are only. The reason why you can buy it and use it is because it's for personal use. The second you move to commercial use, that's when it becomes a $5,000 machine and, becomes a much different thing.
I wonder if we could use AI to finally beat the claw machine.
There's a lot to the claw machine. Have you ever looked into the science behind how those work and which ones are a scam and which ones are not, and why they are the way they are?
No, but that's why I asked the question, is because I knew you would.
Well, there's a guy, you've probably seen his YouTube videos, Mark Rober. He does engineering videos and stuff like that. And he went into the arcades of today and showed which games are kind of a scam and which ones are not, and why it's tilted towards the house and it's more beneficial. Like games that you think are really easy to beat, that have a little quirk in them that make it so they're really hard to beat, are the most profitable ones out there, because you underestimate or overestimate your skill level in regards to it, and the claw machine is one of those.
Yeah, because it looks so darn simple.
Yeah, I mean, I glue the stuff down, so it makes it a little bit more profitable for us. I kid.
I think the biggest challenge of the claw is that you have to think in three directions. It's XYZ.
The real trick to the claw machine, if you're going to hack the claw machine and want to win, pick something close to the drop point. Because as it moves, the spring has the ability to close the claw, but it doesn't have the ability to hold it. So as it's moving back, as it shakes, those springs get less and less tension on them, and it drops. Usually it'll drop whatever it is right next to the box, versus when it picks it up, as it starts to move, when it drops, it could just fall right into the hole.
Wow. That was worth listening right there.
That's what a roll of quarters and a late night at the bar does for you when nobody's around.
Well, you just put money in your own pocket there. So
exactly. So there you go.
So if you all,
I was going to say, so if you're interested, At Games and Legend Arcade are two things that you can YouTube or you can look up on Amazon. I think there's like 50 some games now on the market. It went from 2 last fall to 50 almost instantaneously.
Wow. Oh, fun. All right. Will is going to stick around for the after show. We're going to talk about something very interesting that I haven't thought of yet. If you have some thoughts on this, I would love to hear from you. Does anyone work in AI that is listening to the show? Or do you have thoughts about video games? And also coming up, Johnny from Granola Shotgun is going to be on the show to talk about his continued insulation and using solar in his house, which is very interesting. He's written a lot about it. If you want to go to his website, Granola Shotgun, it's great. It's this really, really well written first person, not written by AI, first person account with tons of photos, which I love. So there you go. Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Garden Fork Radio is produced by Garden Fork Media LLC in Brooklyn, New York. Our executive producer is Jimmy Goots. For more information about Jimmy and the custom hollow books he makes, visit hollowbooks.com. The music in the show is licensed from audioblocks.com and uniquetracks.com.